Please be seated. Why do you doubt? Why do you doubt? You ever have doubts? My bishop, before he sent me and a number of others off to seminary, gave us a parting word. He said, I've been a priest for 31 years. I've been a bishop for 19 of those. And he said, I still have doubts. It was the best gift that I ever got, because it's hard to feel certainty, isn't it, about many things. The world is always seemingly in a state of flux. And Jesus walks into the room where the disciples are in the story that we read today on the third Sunday of Easter. And he comes and says, "Peace be with you." Peace. It's hard to have peace too, isn't it? No certainty. The world in a state of flux. What's next? Peace be with you. They were startled and terrified as they thought they'd seen a ghost. I was with a group of people last Saturday, and we were about to go in to do a retreat, and we're meeting, team meetings, getting to know each other. And I got to speak. And I spoke on Luke's gospel to them in these resurrection stories. And I said, a lot of times people think they have the truth, right? They think they have the truth, because if they don't, then what do they have, are you like that? You want to believe that you know the truth, that the way you see reality is really the way it is? Isn't that human nature? We all want that, right? We want to believe that what we believe is real and good and true and right, that we're on the side of right. In this story, Jesus appears to these people, and they have doubts. The father of modern philosophy, René Descartes, began to wonder what you could really believe, what you could believe with some certainty. And he began by doubting everything. Let's just doubt everything and start building a case for what we might believe. And if you've been paying attention in your education, you would have heard this, but he came up with this famous summation of what we can believe. I think, therefore I exist, right? And people that have translated it said it could be just thinking, there's thinking, therefore there's existence, right? So you're not even sure what that thinking entity is, but there's thinking going on, and therefore there's existence. These men who had surrounded Jesus had witnessed this brutal death. They knew that was real, right? They'd seen it. They had seen this horrible event. Impossible. Our Lord has been murdered. And they put him in a grave. And that's the end of the story, right? Because we know that. We've all had loved ones that died, right? Some of us more recent than others. And that's it. We'll never see them again, right? They're gone. And these men were in their room, and they were sad, and they were afraid, and Jesus shows up. And they thought they saw a ghost, and that might be the same with us, right? And we may see Jesus every day. That's our premise as Christians, that Jesus is still alive and with us, right? But what's the evidence of that? Where do we see Jesus in the world, right? And when I work with these people in these groups, I will often say, and some of you have worked on teams with me, that, we're going to go in and there's a bunch of people and they're going to have questions about all of us. They're going to say, let's say that somebody walks in here tonight for the first time, and they look around and they look at each of us, and they have questions. Well, what are these people all about? What do they believe? How do they live their lives, they might be asking, right? And however we live our lives and whatever we believe, we'll form an opinion in that new person. They'll look at us and say, that's who they are. And Jesus walks in and they think he's a ghost. those new people in our midst might be Jesus. Right? I want you to think like that. Jesus comes in the door. And what do? You're afraid at first that maybe that they're not real? Have you ever noticed how there are certain people that you pass by every day, and you may say hello to them, but you try to make sure that that's at a minimum, right? Because there may be people that serve you in the checkout line, or there may be people that cut you off when you're driving down the road, and then you see them at the red light, and you do a glance. But we try to ignore them. They're like ghosts. We want to ignore them because we got enough troubles, right? Nobody knows the troubles I've seen. Nobody knows but Jesus, right? And so those people just represent one more people. They represent the world. I went, after I told this retreat, I went to this retreat, I told them, I said, all you've got, really, all you've got. You don't have any certainty, nothing. It's not black and white. I mean, we like to think that way. But what you've got is you've got that point where you understood that it wasn't a ghost, that it was Jesus, right? That this point where Jesus entered into your world and you knew without a doubt that your experience was of another than the world. It was holy. Right? And you had that experience. All of us have. Now, sometimes we kind of wash it away. We push it away. Think of it as maybe we ate too much of the bad stuff, some hot sauce or something, maybe boiled eggs or something. And so we had indigestion and bad dreams or whatnot. But we knew at that point that this was something other than the world. And it was God. And we forget. That's all we have. Our witness. And Jesus says, you've witnessed this. And you have a job to do. You are witness to these things. I left this retreat planning and went to see my 99-year-old aunt. She'll be 100 on July 17th. Praise God, right? I mean, wouldn't you want to live 100 years old, wouldn't you? She lives in a nursing home. She sits in a wheelchair, and every time we see her, she's been over like this, and she can barely hear and can't see. But she's going to be 100 July 17th. And she sits there all alone most of the time. And we walk in, and we have to say to her, Aunt Eva, this is Steve, this is Trudy. And we say it maybe 6 or 7 times, and finally she gets it. And then all of a sudden she perks up, and she's so excited to see us. And she begins to talk, and she does most of the talking because she can't hear, right? We have to, And we talk about anything she wants to talk about. And eventually we have to leave. And you can just see the wind coming out of her sails. I knew you would have to leave sooner or later, she says. Come again soon. She lives in Birmingham. In the course of this conversation, we talked about how's the food here, right? The older you get, the conversations get a little bit more narrow, right? And we're talking about the food. In this story today, and in several of the resurrection stories, Jesus, with the people that have doubts and are afraid, looks at them and he says, give me some of your food. You read it in the 21st chapter of John, and you read it in this story. He said, give me something to eat. First of all, he shows them his wounds. He said, look here, I got wounds just like you saw me up there on the cross. Remember, they hammered those nails into my hand. They hammered the nails into my feet. They stuck me in the side. I got wounds. I mean, I know you have to suffer a lot in this world, but I got them. I got wounds. Look, I did this for you. And then he, that's the kind of how he would say it. I'm telling you, he would just say, I wasn't there, mind you, but I know Jesus. And he'd say, look, I got wounds. I know you're suffering right now. I know you got some pain in your life. That's why I did this. I did this for you, but I want you to know I'm with you. I'm never going to leave you, he says in the account from Matthew. And I have wounds just like you do. Oh, and by the way, I'm a little hungry. Can I have some of your food, right? And so it says in this story they gave him some broiled fish, right? Y'all heard that, the broiled fish? In the story John's account, it's grilled fish, right? And we're talking to my aunt about what she likes to eat. And she says, well, they had fish the other day. And it was really good, she said. I said, well, how'd they cook it? He said, well, they fried it. She said, they used to have broiled fish, but I didn't like it. She's a southerner, you know. It's got to be fried, right? Fried fish. Give me that fried fish. Hallelujah, Christ is risen, right? The Lord is risen indeed. Okay, you got that, right? It's true. Jesus rose from the dead. You can bank on it. I've met him on the road to Emmaus. I've had a personal encounter with Jesus. And I see that repeated in my life in various ways over and over again. But it generally doesn't come with somebody walking in the room showing me his wounds. It comes from one of you showing me your wounds. Or me being able to show you my wounds, which makes your wounds understandable, right? Not any less tasteless, but understandable. This is the one part I left off of my group that I was going to this retreat with. In the story that we have, which is only a story where God meets us on the road and God touches us and shows us his wounds. I got them too. He reveals to us something that we're looking for. We're all looking for it. Right? We want to believe with certainty something, right? Right? I mean, is that right? Have I lost you here? And this is what I wanted to say to them that I didn't say. Anything that's good, anything that's right, and anything that's true is found in Jesus Christ. You can measure the truth, the rightness, and the goodness of something by this story. And then Jesus will begin to reveal himself to you all the time. And that is good news. Let's stand and say the historic creed of the church.